Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pokemon Review Series. In this episode, we are going over the Drifblim, also one of the newer arrivals. The last episode that I recorded was Luxray. Drifblim is a slightly newer arrival than what Luxray is, but not by much. Um, Drifblim, the Friday visitor, um, came in. Came in around the time of Old Gold Power Plant's release, uh, and it was a surprise. A surprise Pokemon. Now, what has it got going for it? Now, it is a ghost type Pokemon skill specialist, which is kind of cool. Dozing type, as is typical for ghost types in this game. And the thing that makes a skill specialist good or bad, it really comes down to what their main skill is, the chance of it to proc, and their speed are like the three main things. Inventory can play a little bit of a role too as well, but those are the biggest things. And this Pokemon has a very interesting skill in a sense that it is the only one who has its skill. Now, it also has Drifloon, which is its pre-evolution, but this is the only line with this skill. So it's kind of difficult to compare to other Pokemon skills, but it's a very, very unique skill in how it works, in a sense that it's kind of like a semi-gambling mechanic, but in order to gamble, you don't want instant payoff. It's very bizarre. And I feel like it's kind of an obvious occurrence of recency bias for a lot of people. I remember when this guy was released, the fact that there was no information about him and all the hype about like trying to figure out is Drifblim good. A lot of people were making kind of explanations as to why this Pokemon is good, and a lot of people were looking at its initial stats, being like, "Whoa, this guy is powerful." Because like, oh man, if you use the stockpile skill, you can get a proc of 82,000 on a single skill trigger. That's insane. Which you can do. Max level skill can get 82,000, but the reality of it is you're hardly ever getting that. And even when you do get that, that isn't just one proc. It takes 11 procs before it gets it. Which means that the skill ends up actually like averaging to, according to Random X, about 4,681.77 in value, which I haven't even made the comparison. What is it for charge strength S variable? Charge strength S variable is 1501 to 6004. So like a charge strength S can get that value pretty easily. I think that's slightly above the average for that point. That'd be like 7,500 divided by 2, that'd be like 3,250. So I guess it is more valuable if it gets seven procs before, or it is more valuable than a charge strength S proc, but not by all that much. So really, this guy has to be competing with other charge strength S Pokemon, because what it's doing is really just contributing raw strength, similar to other charge strength S Pokemon and charge strength M Pokemon. Now, it's got a decent speed. Not the best for ghost types in the game, though. I believe it's close to Banette's, but Gengar's way faster. And its inventory is... It's mediocre for a single stage. I'd like to see it's a little bit higher, given that it's a skill specialist and that it only has one evolution, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I've certainly seen worse, especially on like the evolutions. They struggle more for inventory. And its ingredient rate is abysmally low. So, like, its ingredients are really an afterthought. You don't really think much about this. One thing that is unique about it, though, is that it is the only Pokemon available before Lapis Lakeside that takes five pips to catch. So not a 16-pip Pokemon that has Corn at base. So if you want to unlock Corn very early on, this is a very early game way to unlock Corn as an ingredient, to get those diamonds from the research, and also to unlock it so that your ingredient magnet Pokemon can start farming it. But that's about the only thing that is to be said about these ingredients. There's some very interesting synergy that's on it. That like if it had produced more of it, that it wasn't just such an insignificantly low amount, that like with a Potatomon this would be kind of interesting. But like I said, with as low of an ingredient rate as it has, and also not being an ingredient specialist, it's not producing a significant amount of any of this by a long shot. So, as for skill proc rate, decent, especially with this speed. So it looks like it would proc a decent amount, and with a slightly more valuable skill. So why do I say that I think it was overhyped very early on? And that's because a lot of people didn't actually run the complete numbers. Now, here I made a quick comparison of like each one of the... I couldn't just do it like I usually do, where like I look at the individual skill and then just make the comparison, because that gives you skill procs based off of that. It doesn't make cross comparisons to the same type of skill, but different skill technically. And I just brought up all the most common charge strength Pokemon. And we got Golduck, Ampharos, Espeon, Sudowoodo, and Drifblim. And if we look across here, you can see that this is max level skill. At max level skill, the Drifblim has the lowest output of all of them. It has the lowest skill strength of all of them, and the lowest overall strength of all of them, interestingly. I wonder how this compares if I... Oh, that's set to constantly... If you have it set to constantly collect, still relatively similar. It technically slightly outpaces Espeon, which is kind of intriguing, but... oh, wait, no, it doesn't. Never mind. It doesn't even outpace Espeon. I was looking at it as if this was 50 and that was 50. Okay, so, yeah, Sudowoodo is the closest, and Sudowoodo is widely regarded as one of the worst Pokemon in this game. Something that's very interesting for it, though, is that it does have a decent amount of berry value, because this thing is really fast. So if I gave it Favored Berry, let's say it's at Old Gold Power Plant, it still doesn't beat out the Ampharos. Because the Ampharos does the same thing and also has Favored Berry there, but it starts to compete out its competitors. However, I'd be interested to see if I give them all Favored Berry, which one does the best, theoretically. I haven't actually tested this myself yet. So if they all have Favored Berry, then of course the Wudo does the worst, but then, yeah, Drifblim's right behind it. So, overall, it's performing some of the worst overall compared to the other Pokemon here. There are some very interesting ideas, though, to try and manipulate and use its stockpile mechanic very well, and I think there is some value in that. But overall, the stockpile mechanic comes off more as a hindrance than it actually comes as a benefit, because really, what you're doing with stockpile is you are being asked to commit to the Pokemon. The way that stockpile works, you have to run it on the team, and once you get that first stockpile, if you want to be playing optimally, you can't swap it off the team until it has spit up. Because, and you don't know how long that's going to be, because if you swap it off, then you lose all the procs that you've already gathered. Effectively, all that time spent with the Drifblim was wasted. So, if you want to use it optimally, you have to commit to keeping it on the team until it spits up. And then, what if you want it in this week? What if you want it during your event week, but it doesn't spit up that entire time? And then it finally spits up on the Monday after the event when you don't care about it anymore. Like, it's very inconsistent in how it works. What if it just keeps giving one stockpile, one spit up, one stockpile, one spit up, which is actually the worst possible value output that it can give? What if that RNG blesses you with that during an event week when you're kind of counting on it to be reliable? It's not as reliable as other ones as well. Now, the value that you can get out of this stockpiling mechanic is you theoretically can throw it on relatively near the end of the week and take a little bit of a gamble. In fact, shout out to Ben Brown, who plays Pokemon Sleep. He kind of gave me this idea kind of in one of his videos back when Drifblim was first coming around. The whole idea is like, you throw it on like a Saturday, maybe it doesn't spit up. If it doesn't spit up, then you have like five stockpiles to then early in the next week get one spit up, so that you start with a nice little boost. Because strength at the beginning of the week is better than strength at the end, but you still can't really control that, because you still might have it spit up on Sunday. You could stop collecting, but at that point, is it really worth running? And you're always tempted to gamble for more. So there's a lot of nuance to it, and you can use it that way, and I think that there is a place for it. But it's very, very niche, very, very difficult. It's very gambly. If you're a gambler, you'd love this Pokemon. Because there's a lot of gambling to the way that it works. Now, I'd be remiss not to mention that there is an exploit that you can kind of get around the gambling in the game currently. I think it's doomed to eventually be patched out because it feels very unintentional. And basically, the whole concept behind it is that with this stockpiling mechanic, you can put your phone into airplane mode before you tap onto the Drifblim, and then after you tap it, then it tells you if you got a spit up or a stockpile. If then you see that you got a spit up when you didn't want to get a spit up, then you can, when you turn your phone back into airplane mode, since it didn't sync to the servers, it didn't actually collect that skill. So you know it's going to be a spit up. You can then instead swap one of your team members off so that it resets the whole team's skills, put one team member back on, or put that team member back on, but not swapping off the Drifblim, because then it gets rid of the stockpiles. And then it resets its skill so that it can collect a new one that's hopefully a stockpile. If you do that, then mathematically it does come out to actually be stronger than the Pokemon that I made its comparison to. Because as you can see, it's actually kind of close here-ish. And this is with the favorite berry, which is giving it some of the better results. It does actually beat out the Sudowoodo. But it's... And then you can also avoid the whole gambling into the next week sort of deal. Because you can make sure that you never get an accidental spit up wasting the ones that you stockpiled to start off the next week. But it's... I personally don't like it. If you like it, if that's your playstyle, you do you. I just don't like the idea of like putting my phone into airplane mode to try and trick the servers and figure that out. And I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't invest in the Drifblim over that because I genuinely think it is bound to get patched out eventually. Because it feels very unintentional that people can extract more value out of this Pokemon than what it is really designed to do. So, that's a lot of my takes on the Drifblim. I think it's a very interesting concept. I think it's very gimmicky. But gimmicky is the best thing that I can really say about it. I think that's one of the worst Pokemon in the game. I think if they had took a little more time to design the stockpile, if they had made the stockpile higher value on average to account for the fact that it is so much of a commitment, like it's got to be making up for the fact that it is as much of a commitment as it is. And as of right now, it is outputting less than the competition. There could be something going for it if it was like a risk-reward thing, but it doesn't have that going for it, and that makes it a really bottom-tier Pokemon in my personal opinion. So, if you have enjoyed, if you maybe learned something, then please leave a like, subscribe. As always, I thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.